This is Beyond the Big Screen podcast with your host, Steve Guerra.
Here is another Beyond the Big Screen teaser for episodes coming soon. I hope you enjoy and definitely tune in for the full episodes. If you want to learn more, you can head over to beyondthebigscreen.com. You can support Beyond the Big Screen on Patreon and Subscribestar. By joining on Patreon and or Subscribestar, you can help keep Beyond the Big Screen going and get many great benefits. Benefits include advertisement-free content, bonus content, and early access. The bonus content is great too. I will feature outtakes from episodes and live streaming episodes. If you join at the executive producer level, you will become just that, an executive producer of Beyond the Big Screen. You will be able to develop ideas for upcoming episodes, help find great guests, and of course have your name mentioned at the beginning or end of each episode. You won't just be a supporter, you will be a critical member of the team. Go over to patreon.com/Beyond the Big Screen or subscribestar.com/Beyond the Big Screen to learn more. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, send me an email to my email address, steve@a2zhistorypage.com, or follow us on social media by searching for A2Z History. I will see you next time Beyond the Big Screen. Historically, did the Turks and Turkish groups do that sort of thing where they would compel the people that they had conquered to recruit a certain amount of boys to become elite members of their military?
Oh, well, not what they would do is when they would go to villages, it's hard to know what this looked like in practice. They would go to a town square and they would take about 1 out of 40, and it's sort of, as a soldier, you would look at what looks like a young, sturdy lad. The image and what Dracula Untold thinks are where like boys are being ripped from their families and their crying mothers. That very well could have happened in certain situations, but there were other situations too where families wanted their sons to enter the force, because it's not like they completely lost contact with their sons altogether. Their sons were becoming basically Delta Force. They could potentially become very wealthy through their military service. They would have close contacts with the Sultan. They might be able to marry after they retire a noble woman. And if the sons came back to their village, they might be personally related to someone who could give them a lot of political clout. So, for example, the chief advisor of the Sultan in the 1540s or so, who was of Serbian background, his brother was the head of the Serbian Orthodox Church, and he was the second in command of the Ottoman Empire. He had converted to Islam, so that's kind of the messy sort of outcomes that the system produces.
Yeah, I guess there would have to be a certain amount of incentive for them to want to be elite troops, that you can't just bring somebody in and snatch you away from your mother's arms and expect you that you're going to be the top of the line troop, and eventually a lot of them becoming administrators, if there isn't some way that you're going to benefit from it. And militarily, Mexico was much more developed than the United States military at that time. So I would say for sure, economically, militarily, and definitely even in government structure. I mean, Mexico had structures of government that, like you said, went back 200 plus years into even longer than that. And cultural institutions. But that during this 18 teens through 1820s and then into the 1830s, many Americans started to move into the really sparsely settled area of Texas. I think in the 1830s, there was only about 30,000 people living in Texas at that time, which made it by far the smallest state of Mexico. Most of the immigrants came from the southeastern part of the United States. And you look at some of the famous early Anglo-Texans called Texians. where they were from. Stephen Austin and Sam Houston were from Virginia. Davy Crockett was from Tennessee. Jim Bowie was from Kentucky. William Travis and his cousin James Bonham, they are from South Carolina, all in the southeastern section of the United States, which also happened to be the area where slavery was an important institution. And most of these Anglo-Texians, they weren't just coming from economic reasons, which they brought their slaves. And just as a side note, which would become very important, Mexico had already banned and abolished slavery by this point. So that was a little bit of a sticking point right off the bat, basically. But a lot of these Anglo-Texans, they were also fleeing to evade criminal prosecutions, debt, civil injunctions, really like terrible family matters. Like these weren't high-end people moving to set up stable economies and social structure.